My name is Maya. I'm 28 years old. And exactly 10 seconds after I announced my massive career promotion to my entire family, my little sister collapsed, clutching her stomach in pure agony. Everyone panicked. My mother screamed. My father reached for his phone to dial emergency services, but I did not move. I did not blink. I simply smiled, pulled out my phone, and prepared to press play on a video that would destroy her life forever. But to understand how we got to this dining room table, you need to understand the golden rule of my childhood. I was what psychologists call a glass child. I was the healthy older sibling. I was meant to be transparent. I was meant to be invisible. My little sister, Lily, was born 3 months prematurely. She spent the first 3 years of her life inside plastic hospital incubators, hooked up to a terrifying maze of tubes and beeping machines. My parents built an absolute shrine around her fragility. They breathed only when she breathed. I was 5 years old when I learned that my needs were a severe inconvenience. I stopped asking for toys. I stopped crying when I scraped my knee. I had to be perfect, silent, and strong. At first, I understood. Lily was fighting for her very life. But miracles happen. Lily grew stronger. Her lungs developed. Her immune system stabilized. By the time she turned 10 years old, her medical charts were completely clear. She was physically flawless, but there was a very dark side effect to her recovery. Lily had tasted the absolute, undivided devotion of the entire world. She learned very early that sickness equaled absolute power. Being a victim was a currency. And she was the richest girl in our town. I thought she was just a spoiled kid. I had no idea she was actually studying me, learning how to weaponize my own happiness against me. Whenever the spotlight shifted to me, her mysterious symptoms would strike with lethal precision. When I won the state spelling bee in middle school, Lily developed a blinding migraine. My parents left my award ceremony early to put her to bed in a dark room. When I got my acceptance letter to a top-tier university, she suffered a sudden panic attack. We spent the night in the emergency room. The doctors ran scans, took blood, and found absolutely nothing wrong with her. The worst part was the look she gave me. Whenever my parents turned their backs to grab a glass of water or sign medical papers, Lily would look at me from her hospital bed. And she would smirk, a tiny, vicious, knowing smirk. She was untouchable, and she knew it. As we grew older, the sabotage escalated from stealing my proud moments to actively destroying my life. Lily became obsessed with modern therapy culture on social media. She learned how to weaponize psychological terms. She was a master manipulator hiding behind the aesthetic of a fragile, innocent victim. Then came Liam. Liam was my fiancé. We were together for 3 beautiful years. He was the only person who truly saw me, who did not view me just as Lily's caretaker, or so I thought. Lily could not stand it. She could not handle that a man loved me more than he pitied her. So she went to work. She started dropping subtle, poisonous hints to Liam. She would cry in his presence, claiming I was emotionally abusive to her behind closed doors. She told him I deeply resented her for being sick. But words were never enough for Lily. She needed solid proof. She stole my old laptop while I was at work. She created fake social media profiles using my name, my pictures, and my exact typing style. She sent horrific, cruel messages to her own accounts, messages telling her to end her life, messages saying she was a massive burden to our family. She took carefully curated screenshots of this fake abuse and showed them to Liam while sobbing hysterically in his arms. She played the ultimate helpless victim. She convinced my future husband that I was a covert monster. The breakup happened on a rainy Tuesday. We were sitting at a local coffee shop. Liam looked at me with pure, unadulterated disgust. He slid his phone across the wooden table. "I cannot be with someone who tells their sick sister to go die," Liam said, his voice shaking with anger. I looked down at the bright screen. I read the horrifying messages. They were from my account, but I never sent them. My brain scrambled to make sense of the nightmare. I pleaded with him. I told him I was being framed, but he just stood up, threw a $20 bill on the table, and walked out the door. He blocked my number before he even reached his car. I sat there, completely paralyzed. And then my phone buzzed. It was a text message from Lily. It was a selfie. She was standing in my childhood bedroom, wearing Liam's favorite vintage college hoodie, the one he always let me sleep in, and she was smiling. That same vicious smirk. That was the exact moment the older protective sister inside me finally died. I realized I was not dealing with a spoiled sibling anymore. I was dealing with a highly functioning psychopath. And if she wanted to play a game of life and death, I was going to make sure I was the one who wrote the final rules. I moved into a tiny, damp apartment on the completely opposite side of the city. I played my part perfectly. I let my parents believe I was completely broken. I let Lily think she had won the ultimate victory. But grief is a very strange master. Once the tears finally stop burning your eyes, all that is left behind is pure, freezing, calculated rage. To catch a predator, you have to understand exactly how they hunt. For 5 long years, I had watched Lily perform her tragic plays. Now, I studied her like a forensic scientist analyzing a bloody crime scene. I knew that walking back into the house with wild accusations would only make me look insane. I needed a mountain of absolute, irrefutable evidence. Lily could not stand my silence. Over those first few months of my exile, she tried to bait me. It was a twisted psychological game of cat and mouse. She would send me pictures of our family dinners I was strictly banned from attending. She would text me saying how much she missed her big sister, knowing full well she had orchestrated my destruction. She desperately wanted me to react. She wanted me to send a furious, unhinged message so she could run to our parents and prove I was the unstable monster she claimed I was. But I gave her absolutely nothing. I became a stone wall. And my silence made her incredibly sloppy. Before I tell you exactly how I dismantled her entire life piece by piece, let me ask you something. Have you ever been pushed to the absolute edge by a toxic, manipulative family member? If you know exactly what it feels like to be painted as the villain in a story you did not even write, hit the subscribe button right now. We survivors have to stick together. Now, let us get back to the trap. I started my investigation with her medical history. I sat on my cheap mattress and mentally mapped out every single emergency room visit over the last decade. A flawless, undeniable algorithm emerged. Every single time she faked a medical crisis, she always clutched the right side of her abdomen. Whether she claimed it was her head, her chest, or her back, her hand instinctively went to her right side. She always called out specifically for our mother, never our father. When the panicked doctors asked her to rate her pain, it was never a 10. 10 was unbelievable. 10 required emergency surgery. It was always an 8. And the miraculous recovery always happened exactly 2 hours later, just long enough to completely ruin whatever event I was celebrating. But knowing her pattern was simply not enough. I needed hard, digital data. My parents had kicked me out of the house, but they forgot one crucial, hilarious detail. I was still the primary account holder for our family cellular communications plan. It was a leftover financial responsibility from when I lived at home. That small oversight gave me full, unrestricted access to the carrier data logs. I could see every single number she texted. I could see every minute she spent on a call. But I needed the actual message contents. I needed the photographs. That is when I remembered the old tablet. Years ago, I gave Lily my old iPad. She was arrogant. She was careless. She never disabled the cloud synchronization. I dug through my cardboard storage boxes, found my old laptop, and logged into my master administration account. The digital vault cracked wide open. I recovered her deleted cloud backups. I traced her digital payment transactions. The things I found were not just morally bankrupt, they were downright criminal. I discovered massive spreadsheets of money transfers. Over the last 2 years alone, my parents had given Lily over $40,000 for out-of-pocket, experimental physical therapy treatments. Treatments that our health insurance supposedly refused to cover. I needed visual proof. So I took my savings and hired a private investigator. I paid him for 2 days of surveillance work to follow her to her scheduled medical clinic appointments. On the second day, he sent me a video file that made my blood run absolutely cold. The high-definition footage showed Lily walking toward the medical building. She was wearing a bulky neck brace and limping tragically. She walked into the quiet alleyway behind the clinic. She checked her surroundings. Then she took off the medical brace, threw it into her designer tote bag, slipped on a pair of expensive high heels, and walked straight into a luxury daytime nightclub. She was drinking premium cocktails and dancing with the exact money my father worked 80 hours a week to earn. But the financial fraud was absolute child's play compared to what I found next. I dug deeper into the recovered text messages. I was looking for the fake accounts she used to frame me. I found them easily, but I also found a hidden locked folder, a folder labeled with a single red heart emoji. I opened it. My breath completely caught in my throat. It was a direct message thread between Lily and Liam, my former fiancé, the man who had looked at me with disgust and walked out of my life. It was not just Lily pretending to be me to push him away. It was Lily sending late-night messages to the man I was going to marry. Messages where she begged him to leave me, claiming I was mentally unstable. But her lying words were not her only weapon. I scrolled down the screen and saw the photographs. Explicit, highly provocative photos of my little sister, sent directly to my fiancé. Timestamps showed she sent them while I was asleep in the very next room. And Liam? Liam did not block her. Liam responded. He told her she was beautiful. He told her he felt trapped with me. The betrayal was so deep, it felt like a physical knife twisting directly into my spine. She did not just frame me to get him to leave, she seduced him. She stole him. I sat in the dark, glowing light of my computer screen, surrounded by printed bank statements, surveillance photographs, and text logs. I had built a perfect, inescapable cage of evidence. Just as I was putting the final printed screenshot into my presentation folder, my phone screen lit up on the desk. It was a text message from my mother. It was an official invitation to the annual family Thanksgiving dinner. Lily requested that you come, the message read. She says she is finally ready to forgive you. I stared at the glowing screen. A slow, chilling smile crept across my face. She wanted to forgive me. How incredibly generous of her. I picked up the phone and typed my reply. I will be there. The mouse had just invited the cat to dinner, and I was starving. I parked my car down the street from my childhood home. Thanksgiving dinner was always a massive theatrical production in our family. 30 people crowded into the house. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents. The perfect audience for a tragedy, or in my case, a public execution. I walked through the heavy front door. My mother hugged me stiffly, her body tense. My father offered a tight, uncomfortable smile, but Lily gave me a full, dramatic embrace in front of everyone. I'm so glad you came, she whispered directly into my ear, her tone dripping with fake sympathy. You look so incredibly tired, Maya. It was a masterclass in passive aggression. She wanted the extended family to see the gracious, forgiving sick sister welcoming the bitter outcast. I simply smiled back. Let her have her opening act. I was directing the finale. The house smelled like roasted turkey and cinnamon. Loud conversations echoed through the hallways. Everyone treated me like fragile glass, avoiding eye contact, afraid I might have a mental breakdown over the breakup. Lily sat at the center of the massive dining table, glowing in the undivided attention of 3 different aunts. 20 minutes before the main course was served, I quietly excused myself. I walked upstairs to the guest bathroom. I locked the heavy wooden door. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera app. I looked directly into the camera lens. My face was completely calm. It is exactly 6:40 in the evening, I said to the recording. In exactly 20 minutes, I am going to make a fake announcement during dinner. I'm going to tell the family I received a massive promotion. Watch Lily very closely. She will wait for the applause to die down. She will drop her silver fork. She will clutch the right side of her stomach. She will ask specifically for Mom. She will rate her pain as an 8. She is faking it. She always has. I ended the recording. I connected my phone directly to the smart television in the dining room. I cued the video, pausing it on the very first frame. Then I walked back downstairs and took my seat. My uncle carved the meat, and the wine flowed into crystal glasses. Everyone was laughing and sharing stories. The atmosphere was warm and perfect. It was time. I picked up my glass. I tapped it sharply with my knife. The ringing sound cut through the loud conversations. The entire room fell completely silent. All 30 faces turned to look at me. I stood up. I put on the brightest, most obnoxious smile I could possibly muster. I have some incredible news, I announced, projecting my voice so it reached the back walls. My company just promoted me to vice president. My new salary is mid-6 figures, and I am closing on a beautiful house in the wealthiest neighborhood in the city next week. The room erupted. My uncles cheered loudly. My cousins clapped their hands. My grandmother raised her glass in a toast. The congratulations washed over me. But I did not look at them. I kept my eyes completely locked on Lily. I watched the blood drain rapidly from her face. I watched the subtle, panicked tightening of her jaw. She looked around the long table. The absolute center of attention was no longer the fragile, brave, sick girl. It was the successful, wealthy, older sister. She could not stand it. Her brain short-circuited. I counted in my head. 3, 2, 1. Lily dropped her fork. It hit her porcelain plate with a loud clink. She gasped sharply, sucking in the air. Her right hand flew directly to the right side of her abdomen. The applause stopped instantly. The entire family dynamic shifted on a dime. The joy vanished, replaced immediately by deeply conditioned panic. Aunt Sandra knocked over her water glass. Lily, what is wrong? Lily hunched over in her chair, that curling into a tight ball. It hurts, she whimpered, her voice trembling perfectly. It came out of nowhere. It is burning so badly. My mother rushed to her side, her face pale with absolute terror. "Where does it hurt, baby? Tell me." My father pulled out his cell phone, his thumb hovering over the emergency dial button. "Scale of 1 to 10, Lily. Tell us right now." Lily squeezed her eyes shut. She forced out a single agonizing tear. "It is an 8, she cried weakly. "Maybe a 9. Mom, I think I need to go to the hospital." The dining room descended into complete chaos. Aunts were grabbing coats. Uncles were shouting instructions. My mother was sobbing, holding Lily's face. Through the absolute panic, Lily opened one single eye. She looked past our terrified mother. She looked directly at me and she smiled. That same vicious, victorious smirk. She thought she had ruined my moment. She thought she had won the game. I did not scream. I did not cry. I calmly picked up the television remote from the side table. "Before anyone dials for an ambulance," I said, my voice cutting through the screaming room like a frozen blade, "you all need to sit down, and you need to watch the screen." I pressed the play button. My recorded voice echoed from the television speakers, filling the dead silence of the dining room. "It is exactly 6:40 in the evening. In 20 minutes, I'm going to make a false announcement about a promotion. Lily will wait for the applause to finish. Then she will hold the right side of her body and call for Mom. She will rate the pain as an 8 or a 9. I did not pause the video. I let it play. I let 30 people watch my digital ghost predict every single breath my sister just took. All eyes slowly turned from the bright screen back to Lily. She was completely petrified. Her hand was still glued to her right side, but the theatrical grimace of pain had melted into pure, unadulterated terror. "She always holds the right side," my recorded voice continued mercilessly, "no matter what type of pain she claims to have, and she always recovers in 2 to 3 hours. Just enough time to completely ruin any important moment of mine." My grandmother was the first to find her voice. Her hands were shaking violently. "Lily, is this true?" Lily tried to recover. She tried to cry. "I do not know what Maya is talking about," she stammered, her voice cracking. "I am really in pain. Mom, please." "I am not done," I said. My voice was quieter than before, but it commanded the entire room. I pressed a button on the remote. The screen shifted. It was the high-definition footage from the private investigator. 3 days ago, Lily told you she was going to a highly specialized physical therapy clinic, I narrated, pacing slowly behind my chair. "Watch the screen." The family watched as Lily walked into an alleyway, took off her medical neck brace, threw it into a bag, slipped into designer heels, and walked into a luxury nightclub. My aunt covered her mouth to muffle a gasp. "My God," my father whispered, the color completely drained from his face. I clicked the remote again. Massive spreadsheets and bank statements filled the screen. "Let us talk about the money," I said. "Over the last 2 years, you gave Lily $40,000 for experimental treatments. Treatments she claimed our health insurance refused to cover. Look at the highlighted lines. The receipts were blindingly clear. $5,000 at luxury boutiques, $10,000 on vacations, hundreds of dollars on premium alcohol. She is not sick," I stated cleanly, looking directly at my parents. "She is a parasite. She manipulated your trauma. She used your fear of losing her as an unlimited credit card." "Maya, stop this," Lily whispered. Her voice had lost all its fragile sweetness. It was sharp, cornered, vicious. "Why? Are we not having fun?" I clicked to the final folder. It was simply labeled with Liam's name. "Do you all remember when my fiancé left me?" I asked the room. "Do you remember when Lily showed you the horrific messages I supposedly sent her, telling her to end her life? I displayed the technical logs, the internet protocol addresses, the device history. She used my old tablet. She waited until I left for work, logged into my accounts, and sent those messages to herself. She manufactured the abuse." My mother was weeping silently now. "Lily, how could you be so cruel?" "Oh, it gets much worse," I smiled. It was a cold, hollow smile. "She did not just want to ruin my reputation. She wanted my life." I pulled up the final damning pieces of evidence. The direct message thread between Lily and Liam. The room collectively stopped breathing. I showed the texts. I showed the explicit, highly provocative photographs she sent to my fiancé while I was asleep under the same roof. "She seduced him," I said. The words hit the dining table like concrete blocks. "She preyed on his sympathy, manufactured a crisis, and stole the man I was going to marry. because she could not stand the thought of someone loving me more than they pitied her. Lily fell out of her chair. Her knees hit the hardwood floor with a heavy thud. She crawled toward my mother, sobbing hysterically. Genuine, ugly tears streamed down her face, ruining her perfect makeup. "Mom, please," Lily wailed, reaching out to grab our mother's dress. "I was sick in the head. I need therapy. I was just jealous. Please forgive me." My mother did something I had never, ever seen her do in 28 years. She physically recoiled. She stepped backward, pulling her dress out of Lily's hands. She looked down at her golden child as if she were looking at a venomous snake. "Do not touch me," my mother whispered. Her voice was completely hollow. 15 years of absolute devotion, completely shattered in less than 10 minutes. My father stood frozen at the head of the table. His fists were clenched so tightly his knuckles were white. $40,000, he muttered, staring blankly at the wall. "You stole from us. You destroyed your own sister." I walked around the long table. I stood directly over Lily. She looked up at me. There was no smirk left. There was no absolute power. There was just a pathetic, empty shell of a person realizing she had absolutely nothing left to trade on. "You wanted all the attention, Lily?" I asked. My voice was practically a whisper, but in that silent room, it sounded like thunder. "Look around you. You have it. Every single eye in this room is finally on you, for exactly who you are." I turned away from her. I picked up my coat from the back of my chair. I slung my purse over my shoulder. "I sent copies of these files to everyone at this table. I sent them to your friends. I sent the fraud details to Dad's accountant." I walked toward the front hallway. "Maya, please wait," my father called out. His voice cracked with heavy, unbearable guilt. "We did not know. We are so incredibly sorry. Please do not leave like this." I stopped at the heavy oak front door. I put my hand on the brass doorknob. I did not turn around to look at him. I did not need to. "You chose your daughter a long time ago," I said to the empty hallway. "Now, what you get to live with her." I pulled the door open and walked out into the freezing night air. The heavy door slammed shut behind me, sealing them inside their own personal hell. As I walked down the concrete driveway, I could hear the muffled sounds of absolute chaos erupting inside. My father shouting, my aunt screaming, Lily wailing in genuine, inescapable agony. I unlocked my car. I sat in the driver's seat and closed the door. The silence inside the car was deafening. It was not the heavy, oppressive silence of being ignored. It was the brilliant, weightless silence of absolute freedom. I put the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life. I looked at the house one last time in the rearview mirror. Then I put the car in drive, pressed my foot on the gas pedal, and drove into the night. I never looked back.